Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first edition this year of the women's edition of the Village Law SEQFC preview show. I'm Darren Lutton, and we've got two of the best with us tonight. We've got Karen Longbottom, who's back again this year. Good evening, Karen.
Hey, Darren. Hey, Mel. How you doing?
Yes, well, the other person is Melanie Lloyd. Melanie from the Southwest Queensland Thunder. She's been injured this year. I thought that was a great opportunity to keep her in the game by getting her on this show. But Mel, you're manager of the Thunder team now.
Yeah, I've stepped into that role at the moment, just sort of giving them a hand, and I think trying to have my input here and there. I can't stay out of it. I'm a bit nosy, so I'm always around and always trying to go to trainings when I can, and be in the sheds with the girls when I can. Is there a coaching career for you in the future? Oh, I've been asked that so many times. I don't know, maybe. I have done coaching in the past in some local comps, and I really enjoyed that. So I think it's probably something that I'd step into eventually. Yeah. All right. We'll get Karen to have a chat with you after the game. She'll get you all clued up. Sounds good. All right. Let's get cracking. Let's talk about the NPL women's competition first up. We are how many weeks into the competition? We are 6 rounds in. Few teams have played 5. Karen, what do you make of it so far? It's the obvious suspects all at the top of the table, with the possible exception of Capalaba, who dropped a couple early.
Yeah, so I think for the most part, there's been a couple of surprise packets, but I think those clubs who are kind of up at the upper end, who weren't expected to be there, have probably had a bit of an easier run in than other clubs. Obviously, Lions and Gold Coast always going to be strong clubs this year, but real credit to Alex for working with his younger players too. He's got a lot of under 23s at the moment, and they're still going great guns, which is fantastic to see. I expect Capalaba to start picking up a lot more points now that they've got a few of the girls back from W League, and I think that they'll start gelling really, really well. And a Matilda, no less,
Larissa Crummer.
Yeah, it's great to see Larissa back in the local fold. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what she can do this year.
All right, so let's just, before we get into this weekend's fixtures, we'll have a quick look at the ladder. We've mentioned Lions, Gold Coast, always expect them to be there. Brisbane City making a great fist of being in this competition in 3rd place. They're about where I thought they would be. Do you agree with that, Karen?
To be honest, they're higher than what I thought they would be.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they you've got a brand new group of players. They're always going to take a little bit of time to get your style of play in together, and they've come from various different clubs as well. So it is difficult. But I expect that as they come into the season, they're starting to hit the teams like Gold Coast this weekend, and think they've got Lions following that. So it's going to start getting a little bit harder. So it'll be interesting to see how they fare against those clubs.
South United in 4th place. Gary French, he's done it again.
Honestly, Gary is just phenomenal. The way that he can manage to just get teams playing great football week in, week out. So I'm really pleased to see South's doing quite well this year.
Such a great turnover of players too. He loses so many, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's really good at getting them good deals over, at colleges in America and things. But obviously that's probably going to be on a little bit of a hiatus given what's going on in the world. So maybe he can keep those players for a little bit longer and build something for the future.
Now, you mentioned surprise packets there, Karen. The team in 5th and 7th place are the surprise packets for me so far. Moreton Bay United, David De Silva, and Sunshine Coast Wanderers.
I expected Moreton Bay to do really quite well. Dave's a fantastic coach, and he's got Gary Ward there as well, helping him out. So what a coaching team. I think that they were always going to do quite well in terms of they're going to have young talent, a lot of girls from QAS that Dave had for a couple of years. So I think that they'll be there and thereabouts. They've just signed a new goalkeeper as well, which was really interesting. I saw that today. But Sunshine Coast Wanderers, definitely a surprise packet for me. I sort of didn't expect them to do quite as well as they are at the moment. So I'm not quite sure who they've played, but I think they've picked up some really good results so far.
We, of course, didn't mention Capalaba in 6th place, but we did talk about them earlier. Western, Mel, I might just turn to you now. We'll turn to the other clubs here in the competition. We've got Western Pride in 8th, Virginia in 9th, QAS in 10th, Mitchelton in 11th, and the Gap in 12th. What do you make of those clubs? Are they roughly where they should be, do you think?
Sorry, was that to me?
Yes, it was.
Oh, sorry. Look, I think it's tough when you see the Gap where they are, because they were so dominant for so many years, and you just sort of expect them to be in that top four or always on the cusp of that top four. Like, they were so dominant for so many years, and they just had such a winning culture. So that's a bit of a surprise. Obviously, with Western Pride, I'm actually surprised where Western Pride are sitting. I thought they would have actually been sitting a bit lower, which my sister's probably going to kill me for saying that. But I didn't necessarily think that they had, well, actually at the start of the season, I did say, I don't know if they'll have superstars, but I think they're going to be a really good playing group. And it seems like they really have gelled together. And I've sort of spoken to Abby here and there, and she sort of said that they're all really good friends. So that does make a difference. A team of amazing players might not work well together, but I think Western Pride are just showing that they can play good football. So I think they're gelling really well together. And obviously everyone else sort of in that bottom group there, they're probably where I expect them to be. But then again, no one's played every team yet. So a team might be going for a good one. You could have Lions that verse all the top teams and drop a few points here and there, but that doesn't necessarily show what they're going to be like at the end of the season. So I think once we get through a full round and everyone plays each other, then we'll sort of see where everyone should be. Yeah.
The next three clubs are Olympic, Logan, and Easts. Karen, I might throw this one back to you, given your coaching history. Bit of a struggle there for Easts at the moment, and they've had a change of coaches.
Yeah, so just recently, Joe DeSavi has sort of taken over as the head coach role with Mel Panetta. So there's been a little bit of change there. East have had a little bit of misfortune with, Tess Andahar having to go back over to America after the passing of her father. So obviously a big loss there, because she's such a quality player and such a good, driver of the team. They've also had a lot of injuries and things like that, and unfortunately are lacking depth. So I think that it's just been an unfortunate year for the Tigers, and they'll be frustrated with where they're sitting. But yeah, I guess the next couple of weeks will tell where they might end up.
Given all the departures that Logan had, I'm amazed that they were actually able to put a team on the field.
Well, Nick Croydon is a master at getting people to buy into his philosophy. He's got such a clear and good way with players that I think that I knew he would always get a group together and that they would be competitive. And I think you can look out for them in the next couple of weeks. I think they're going to start picking up some good results. I think they've got a few players arriving back from America soon as well. So yeah, keep an eye on Logan. They'll start climbing that table, I think.
Interesting. All right, let's have a look at the last two teams on the ladder, the Southwest Queensland Thunder and Peninsula Power. Now, I know that Penny Power just had a massive uphill battle trying to sign some players, but what's going on with the Thunder this season?
Yeah, I think we're in the same boat as Penn Power, actually. We have had quite a few big injuries. I think,
including yourself.
Yeah. Well, 2 girls with season-ending injuries. Sorry, 3 girls with season-ending injuries, and then a few more with 6 to 8 weeks off. So we're really struggling for players at the moment, and that's the struggle, I think, with us trying to be competitive at the moment, is we don't have the depth right now. So we're pulling players from the 23s. So some of these girls might have to play a full 90 minutes in the 23s and then sit on the bench or even start for women. So that's always a struggle when you're versing teams that have a full, fresh 16 players. It's tough to compete with that, I guess. So that's probably the hardest thing we're dealing with right now. Yeah, bit of depth.
All right, let's have a look at this weekend's fixtures. And it's round 11 this weekend. I'm not sure how this all works, but Brisbane City and QAS have already played their game, a 2-1 victory to Brisbane City. We've got the Gap hosting South United, Moreton Bay up against Gold Coast, Southwest Queensland Thunder hosting Peninsula Power, Logan Lightning against Capalaba, Lions against Virginia, Western Pride hosting Mitchelton, and Sunny Coast Wanderers against Olympic. Easts have the bye. The game that sticks out for me, Moreton Bay United up against Gold Coast. Karen, that should be a good game, yeah? Particularly with Sean Fry joining Moreton Bay now.
I think your fixtures are a bit mixed up there, Dasby.
Yeah, we've got East.
Oh, that's May. What am I doing?
But that will be a good game in a few weeks.
Oh, it's crazy. Let's try again. Got this wrong last night as well, I think. Or was it the week before? Always getting it wrong. Here we go. Now, the Gap hosting Virginia, Moreton Bay hosting Mitchelton, Southwest Queensland Thunder against Easts, Lions against Penny Power, Capalaba up against QAS, Gold Coast United against Brisbane City. There's your game of the weekend. South United up against the Wanderers, Olympic up against Western Pride, and Logan have the bye. That's better, right?
Yeah, there we go.
All right. So, Karen, what do you like there?
I'm actually really keen to see Gold Coast Brisbane City, as you mentioned. I'm really keen to see how Brisbane City match up against what will be, a very tough test for them. I'm also really keen to see how the Gap and Virginia go, because I think that's going to give a really good sort of insight into who might push for a top 8 spot and who might just fall out of it.
You mentioned earlier, Mel, about the Gap not being up near the top of the ladder. There's just such a massive rebuild there at the Gap, and we just saw in pre-season all these young players being promoted to the top team. So Virginia are in a pretty similar position as well. So it's going to be exciting to see how these two teams develop over the next couple of seasons.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, Gap have that. They should have that base, I guess, and I think they might get the win there, obviously, because they've been in the NPL. They know what to expect. So majority of those players have been in the NPL for a few years, whether they've come from different teams or not. So I think, yeah, that'll be an interesting one. I also think that listening to those ones, I think Western Pride and the Olympic game will be interesting, knowing that Alira will be back for Olympic this weekend, because it seems to me that Western Pride have a really strong attack and Alira is going to boost Olympics attack, which I think they've said that they've struggled with in the past. So obviously Alira can change a game and so can Western Pride's attackers. So I think it could be really back and forth. You never know. It could be a massive scoreline either way, or it could just be 5-5, something like that. So that'll be interesting. And I think Olympic, we versed them on the weekend just gone, and I overheard them saying that they struggled to score goals, but they put quite a few past us. And I think with Alira being there, they could be pretty strong and actually start to build, because I do know that a lot of those girls are really good friends, and they've come from Olympic and gone to other clubs in previous years. So, and they've all seemed to gravitate back to Olympic. So they could start to get some more points and build from there. Can
the Thunder beat Easts this weekend?
Look, anything can happen. I actually think, I think East are maybe just above us. So it's going to be a fight for both teams. It's basically going to be who wants to win it the most, because we're both struggling for points at the moment. And obviously it sounds like East are sort of in a bit of the same position as us. So I think it'll be a battle, definitely.
Before we move on to the Football Brisbane competition, I'll throw the floor to both of you. What do you make of this 17-team competition this year?
I can see Karen's thinking the same thing as me. Look, I think we had a bit of a discussion about this just before, but at the start of when they first announced it, I wasn't too keen on it. I thought that a lot of the top players are going to gravitate towards those top clubs because they want to be playing in that top tier the second half of the season, which is fair enough. You've got to do what's best for you. Some of them want professional contracts. They're going to go to the best clubs. And if there's money involved there as well, that's another incentive. So I really thought that there was going to be a really big gap between the top teams and those bottom teams, and then a few dark horses in the middle. But it's really tough to compete with that, I guess. Yeah.
Anything to add to that, Karen?
Oh, I think Mel has explained that perfectly, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think also coming into the split, once it does split, I think that there's a registration window around that time. So it's going to be interesting to see if a few players look to consider their options as to whether they jump just before that registration window closes and try to secure a spot in a top 8 team.
Which we've seen that in the past, and that's without a split. We've seen players want to go to a team that's going to make finals, just to make finals. So I definitely think that'll happen.
Interesting. Good comments there. Let's move now to the Football Brisbane competition. And this is a nice little cozy 8-team competition. And looking at the ladder, Broadbeach United on top. Kangaroo Point Rovers in second place on 10, UQFC in third, and Anley in fourth. Karen, you play for Kangaroo Point Rovers. How's this competition?
Look, this competition is extremely close for the most part. I think Broadbeach are well out in front at the moment, and I think it's going to take a lot of work for teams to sort of catch them. I think Carina's probably the closest to them at this stage in terms of playing style and ability. But I think that there's a few who could rival them come into the second round as teams start to get their style of play together and fitness and things like that. But Broadbeach were phenomenal when we played against them. And they've got some extra MPLW girls, which makes a big difference as well. And it just shows their class. So, it's pretty good competition. Unfortunately, the Lakes struggling a little bit, having a massive rebuild year, and Kath and the girls are working really, really hard. So I'm sure that they're going to continue to improve throughout the year. And hopefully they, are encouraged by, for instance, they, were quite competitive against Anley on the weekend and only sort of lost 4-0, which is really, really a massive improvement given some of the previous scores that they've had.
Nisa Doyle playing for Broadbeach, it just boggles the brain. Far too good for this competition.
Yeah, there's a few of them that are, to be honest with you, but that's okay.
All right, let's look at this weekend's fixtures. Kangaroo Point Rovers up against Anley, Broadbeach up against UQ, that should be a good one. Grange Thistle hosting Rabina, and Carina up against the Lakes.
Yes, Football Brisbane have decided that they're going to film Carina and the Lakes this weekend, which I'm hoping that the Lakes can, put in a really good, solid performance. But Carina is quality. Their formation is quite hard to defend against if you're playing a 4-3-3. So they play a different formation, which makes it really interesting. So it's going to be quite a challenge for the Lakes, but I'm wishing them all the best, of course. And yes, Broadbeach and UQ is probably another cracking game. I think Broadbeach are going to probably have too much for UQ, but UQ are definitely very, very dangerous on the counter, so they'll have to watch out for that.
Big shout out to my sister Shanae, who plays for Carina in the lower leagues. She's actually racked up 100 goals for Carina in 5 seasons. So well done, little sis. All right, let's move on to Capital League 1. And only early days, only 3 rounds in. Ipswich Knights are on top as the only undefeated team. There's Albany Creek and Taringa in third, Pine Hills, Toowong, North Brisbane, Caboolture, Southside Eagles, Mount Gravatt, and North Star. Having a look at this weekend's fixtures. Albany Creek hosting Toowong, Taringa hosting Pine Hills, Mount Gravatt take on Ipswich Knights, Southside Eagles up against Caboolture, and North Star up against North Brisbane. Karen, how's your knowledge of this comp? You got much intel there?
Little bits and pieces. I know a few really quality players who are playing in the Capital League who should also probably be playing a little bit higher, but it happens, like Kim Abbott at Taringa absolutely tearing up, and also Shani Wilton at Ipswich Knights, also extremely quality player. So yeah, I think the competition's probably just as tight as the BWPL, which is really good to see. But yeah.
All right. Look, that's pretty much our wrap of the competition so far this week. Mel, I just want to ask you about the players that you deal with, your knowledge of the competition. How much money is being thrown about in these leagues to get a quality side up and running?
Look, I couldn't tell you, to be honest. Obviously, I think every club's different, but you can see the big clubs. Obviously, there's a lot of money at those big clubs, and that's why they've got the good players. And yeah, I wouldn't even know a ballpark figure, but it's obviously a great incentive. And a few clubs would obviously pay their players differently and have marquee players here and there. So yeah, I really couldn't tell you, but I'd love to know.
With the players at the Thunder, I know we had Geordie Franca go down the hill a couple of seasons ago. I'm sure her reasons were study-based rather than actually financial or for footballing reasons. But, I mean, you've got some great players at the Thunder. Did you ever get a phone call encouraging you to go and join a big club?
Oh, look, there has been talk. Like, obviously, we do have some really quality players, and I know when Geordie went to Lions, she was one of their main players. She was in the leadership group, as she should be. She's such a great player, and I think they really wanted to keep her there. And even Liz Hollett, I know that she has been approached by a few clubs. We've had Louise Rolfe, who was our old striker. Teams like that. I know that East have wanted me since I've belted a few goals past them. Told me that they wanted me there, and I think that a reason why a lot of us don't, well, I guess some of the top players, don't get approached is because there are players here that have so much loyalty to Thunder. It's sort of like that thing that, oh, they'll never go. But I know that a few girls have left, and that's for study reasons and stuff like that. But there are a few Toowoomba girls that have made it into really good teams. We've got Tiff Gibley, Tiffany Roberts was with East for years and years, and she's a Toowoomba girl. Talitha Doro, Abby Lloyd, heaps more, and even a few girls that have come from Toowoomba that have been in the QAS teams, things like that. So there is some quality up here, and I guess clubs just have to ask around. Yeah.
Sure. How's Lauren Spreadborough fitting in up there?
Yeah, she's great. She's obviously such a quality player, but she's slotted in really well. She seems like she's got such a level head on her. I think she's really mature for her age. She does seem a lot older, and she's already showed that she's a really good leader. So I think in years to come, she'll just keep getting better and better. And everyone sort of already looks to her as a leader as well. There seems to be a bit of a leadership group in Thunder. And that's without even having to put a label on it. But Lauren's definitely one of those big voices out there, which is great. She's fitting in really well.
Melanie, absolutely fantastic debut from you tonight. Well done. We're definitely keeping you. Karen, I might just throw, before we sign off, that initial question at you. You're probably much more closer to the money here in Brisbane. You must wish that you were playing in your now, right?
Yeah, to be honest, I was actually having this conversation with one of my players at KPR the other day, and she just literally said, I wish I was playing these days because it's just getting thrown around like crazy. I will admit that at East we were very quite conservative compared to a lot of other clubs, and when I was coaching I was big on rewarding loyalty, so the players like Tiff Roberts and Akana Dixon, those players who've been with the club for 7, 8, 9 years were, they were incentivized more than anyone else because of the fact that that's what I wanted to build. I think that sort of changed after I left, which is a bit of a shame, but that's kind of what I valued. So sometimes the gaffer does have a bit of a say about how funds are spent. But I will admit that we were one of the most modest programs with incentives compared to what I hear of some others. And we just try to build a culture of people wanting to be there for the right reasons and not just the money.
All right. Great chat tonight, ladies. That's the show. Hopefully we'll be back next week as long as we can keep the numbers coming in. I'm Darren Lutton. This has been the Village Law SEQFC preview show. We will see you next week.